So now that we've set up a basic scene, we have a character that can kind of move around. He has a little sprite inside. He's not being SpriteMan hasn't been enabled on him yet, but we've got player controls. We have the camera following the player. We have some basic physics. The character can jump around. Now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and start creating some components that will manage our sprite. We're going to do that by going to our sprite that is a child of our actual character, and we're going to add a script from SpriteMan 3D. We're going to add a sprite manager. So as soon as we added that, we see that now this sprite is automatically billboarded. Okay. And then even in our play mode, it doesn't matter what direction he's facing, he's always billboarded towards the camera. And this is default behavior. And if you don't like this billboard option, I recommend turning this off and using another component called the billboarder underneath SpriteMan. And just move this guy up so it doesn't matter if he's below or above, but I like having the billboarder above the sprite manager and underneath the sprite renderer in general, just so I organize this nicely and kind of keep track of what things are doing. And when we turn, okay, so the default billboarder gives you the same effect as the sprite manager billboard. Always make sure that this guy is turned off if you use this one, because if you do, then you still just get the default billboarding behavior from Sprite Manager. So now there's various options on this billboarder. So for example, when we turn everything off, we see that it kind of looks like this when you move around the camera. When you billboard V, it will give you the default Sprite Manager billboarding behavior, which works really nicely for a certain range of angles. But when you get the higher angles, now the guy is like lying down, and so that may not be exactly what you want. When you turn this off, boom, he snaps back to the vertical plane here, like so. And then when you have pointed camera turned on, it also rotates the sprite kind of like to point directly towards the camera, which looks kind of okay, but it also looks like he's sliding around a bit as you change your perspective. So maybe you like that, maybe you don't. When you turn that off, that's generally why the characters look like they are billboarded pointing towards kind of like the viewing plane of the camera. That way when we have a bunch of these around, so they're kind of all pointing towards the same camera plane. Billboard V gives you that default behavior. Point to camera. Now they're all pointing a camera, and they're not changing like that vertical axis. And then when we do both, we get a different look. They kind of look like they're sliding around a bit, but they also, this is probably like one of the higher fidelities. Actually, no, this one. So this is probably like the highest like 3D type of fidelity. It changes perspective the same way as like a regular 3D object, but then of course it really looks like he's just a sprite being rotated around. So that's why within a certain angle range, this kind of ends up being like, in my opinion, the nicest effect. But it only works like up to about a certain height. Like once it gets past about here, then like it breaks the illusion that this is a sprite character in a 3D world.